Hello. Let's see the comments. Hi everyone.
We
All
can wait for
right.
1 2
Hello
minutes.
Ritesh. Hi. Hello Shivam, Raj. We'll just wait for 2 more minutes and then we'll start at 9:05. Come on. Let's get the view count up. A minute to go and then we'll start. Yeah. All right. We'll be having a quick timer of 30 seconds and then we'll be starting the session officially. See you in a while. All right. So, hello everyone. This is Chinmay from the GDSC DevOps team, and this is Krishna. Say hi.
Hello everyone. So enjoy the session. I'll be taking the Ansible part. So meet you later. Thanks.
We'll be seeing Krishna shortly. I'm taking over the session for now, and we're gonna be diving into Docker. All right. Let's get the PPD up. So, before we dive into Docker, let's just go over a few software development methodologies that we have had up till now, and what was the need for DevOps. Back in the day, we used to have this methodology called waterfall, and what it meant was that each step was properly documented, and according to the client's requirements, you would develop it, and then the code would be pushed into production. The issue with it was that it used to take really a long time to develop, and there was no chance of having dynamic changes during the development process. Once it was pushed into production and once it was pushed into the operations phase, there was nothing you could do about adding changes, and it would cause a big mess. It is still used for very large legacy frameworks, but things have moved on, and they are much more dynamic nowadays. Then came Agile. And what Agile did was that we had sprints or cycles, if you would. And what we used to do was that there used to be short bursts of development and operations. And at the end of every cycle, we would go to the client and ask them whether they were satisfied with the version of the software that they have had right now. And if they aren't, then we would add the new features in the next cycle. So, what is DevOps? DevOps could be thought of as an extension to the agile methodology. What it does is that it combines the development and the operations teams together. Back in the day, what it used to be like, the developers used to just make the code and then they used to throw it over the wall towards the operations team, and they had no idea how it was actually developed, and they had to learn everything from scratch to implement it in the production environment. And that's a mess. So, then came DevOps, and what we do is that the cycles like Agile, but development and operations continue side by side, and we can instantly, dynamically update for changes that the client wants. The documentation does require a little bit of work over here. It cannot be as extensive as the waterfall methodology, but it is what it is. So if you can see on the screen, there's 8 stages of the DevOps cycle. And today we are going to be learning a little bit about Docker and Ansible, that is the deployment and operations sector. You all must have familiarized yourself with version control, that is Git. GitLab is used on a bit more professional level. And the Android developers over here must have experimented around with Gradle, that is an Android development building application, if you would. I hope you were a part of the Google Cloud Facilitator program as well, so that you could have familiarized yourself with cloud services like Amazon Web Services, Azure, so on and so forth. We did put a link for signing up on Azure as well because it's free for students. Releasing, you must have heard this word CI/CD, continuous integration and continuous deployment, and you create something called a pipeline in it, which is basically an automated workflow. Something similar can be done in GitHub Actions, but the professional software that we use for that is called Jenkins. And I guess Kubernetes, we won't be going through this early because it's a little bit advanced. I'm hoping to have an offline session on that. This comes in when you want to manage multiple containers at the same time, and you'll get to know what containers are just in a second. So, with that out of the way, let's move on with today's session, and that is Docker. So, what exactly is Docker? Docker is, you can say, it's a way of packaging your software so that it can run on any hardware. What does that mean? See, for any application, you require some dependencies, some node modules. Say you're working on a Node.js project. What you would need is the node modules, and then the package JSON, package.json files, so on and so forth. What could happen is that you must have heard of this problem called "it works on my machine." Most of the times we have certain dependencies that have been deprecated or are outdated, and when we try to reproduce a bug in production, or when we try to show our colleagues our work, it doesn't necessarily match up. And what happens is that it runs on someone's machine, and on someone else's machine it doesn't run, and then it becomes a mess. Let me tell you a funny backstory. During a hackathon, actually, there was this application that me and my friends had to run, and we were running different operating systems where we were running different different dependency versions, like how Node has versions and all of that. And for some reason, it used to work on his laptop, and it didn't used to work on my laptop. And containerization, Docker, solves just that. What it does is that it encapsulates your application in an environment down to the operating system, and it makes sure that it can run on any environment, any machine possible. It's a little bit like a VM, and under the hood, Docker Engine is a Windows server on Linux, but we'll go through that later. That's not for today. That's for another day. So, there's three main things that you need to know about in the Docker ecosystem. One is the Docker file, then is the Docker image, and the Docker container. The container is nothing but the running instance or the running application. For all of you programming enthusiasts who have delved into the world of object oriented programming, you can add an analogy over here and imagine the Docker image as the class and then the Docker container as the object, that is the instance of the class. It's very similar. So, if the container is the running application, then the Docker image is what has the instructions on how to build that and how to run that application. And in order to construct this Docker image, what you use is called a Docker file. So, this is the blueprint for ultimately creating your container. There's a little definition given on the side for you. And let's just see what a Docker image is. Once you create your Docker file, you're going to create something called an image. So what an image is that it is the template for creating and building your application and running it on your local machine. How it works is that it has multiple layers. What does layers mean? We'll go to that. We'll come to that when we are actually coding the project, where there will be line by line instructions, and each line counts as a layer. It's sort of like version control, where every single layer is like a commit onto your GitHub or whatever version control system you're using. An app will be bundled in an image, containers and from images. And where is this image stored? Like, if you have a code base in web development, where do you store it? Generally on GitHub, right? So there's a place where we store images as well, and those are called registries. Those are analogous to repositories, if you will. And Docker has their own official registry as well. That's called Docker Hub. But you can resort to other registries as well, such as the Azure Container Registry, Google Registry, so on and so forth. They're available on the cloud as well. Containers, like I said, rapidly deployable, portable, shippable, scalable applications. That's a container, your application with the environment. Um, Now that you know this, let me just have a little comparison between the bare metal versus virtual machines versus containers and how applications run on them and why we required containers in the first place. So, what is bare metal? That is directly running the project on your local system. Like you read through the documentation, you download all of the dependencies manually, and then you run it on your machine. So this does give you the highest performance, but the deployment is very lengthy and it's not portable at all. You cannot, like, suppose there's someone sitting in another country, you cannot tell them to just come over to your machine and see what your application is doing in order to convince them or in order to show them how it is different from this. That brings us to virtual machines. And virtual machines are managed by a software called Hypervisor. We won't go too much in depth on that, but this is how the softwares like virtualware, VMware, and Blackbox work, VirtualBox work. So, what is the difference? What is the main difference between virtual machines and containers? That is computational resources. Containers are a little bit more nicer, if you will, for your host machine. They're not that resource intensive, and they're very portable. Like, for setting up a virtual machine, you'll have to have a little bit of knowledge for cloud computing and few things. For Docker, you just don't need anything. Within minutes you can have whatever application you want to be running. Enough talk. Let me show you something. Let's get practical. So what we are going to do is first we're going to see what a container is like, and this rapidly portable, this part I want to convince you how it actually works. What we are going to be doing is we are going to be spinning up an Ubuntu container. And for all of you who have messed around with operating systems, either dual booted your machines or installed a new one in the first place, would have known that it's quite a lengthy process. You have to first search the ISO image, you have to download it, perhaps you'll have to use a flash drive, and then you'll have to manually install it on your computer. Over here, we're going to be spinning it up within minutes. So allow me to share my VS Code screen and we'll get to it. Let's just, how about we use command line for this? Let's use command line for this. Just simple command line. So if you're following along, I would recommend you to do the same as I. All right, here we go. So here's the first command of the day, and that is, oh, great spelling. Yeah. Docker pull. Ubuntu. And what this does is that it goes to the registry, in this case, the official Docker registry. And what it is going to do is it's going to pull down the Ubuntu image. Let me show you what it actually looks like on the internet, on the official registry. Let me just pull it up. You can follow along and go on Docker desktop or Docker documentation to find this as well. Let me just pull it up. There's Docker Hub, the official registry for Docker. And there you go. So look at this. This is Docker Hub. That's the official registry. And what we are going to be pulling down is an Ubuntu image. And there's various flavors that you can opt for and just configure it according to your project and just start using it with the help of containers. All right, so we have this. How do you run it now? That is the next command. Docker run -it Ubuntu. The -it stands for running it in an interactive environment. What it does is that it directly takes me inside the container, starts a shell session, and I can interact with it dynamically on the spot. So let's just run that. And here we go. Root. And we have the good old Linux terminal showing up. And we can just write our first command within the Ubuntu environment. And we have ourselves a little hello world. You can also write all of the basic Linux commands and just mess around with it. So this is what a container looks like. All it took was just two commands. One was docker pull and one was docker run. And within minutes, we had our Ubuntu system, Ubuntu environment running on our local system. It's lightning fast. That is containers for you. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be making a hands-on project, a little Node.js project. And we're going to be using a little bit of that JavaScript that you learned in your web development cohort. And we shall be Dockerizing that application. So let's go on with that. I'll just fix this. And let's just create a, oh, my bad. Let me just close that real quick. Right, there we go. Let's just create a test folder where we're going to be building our application tonight. And let's just call it demo app. How about that? All right, let's pull up our VS Code and open it there. Here we go, demo app, all ready to go. Let's start. So we're going to begin by making a little source folder. This is where all of our files are going to reside into. And to start by creating an index.js file. Okay. Now we're going to be using a little bit of JavaScript here, so I hope you have you know it. But if you don't, it's all right. I'll walk you through it. No need to worry. So what we're going to do is first we're going to require an instance of Express, and we're going to do that just like that. What this does is that it creates an instance of Express and then it stores it in the app variable. And what we're going to do is we're going to send a simple GET request on that. We're not going to mount it with any path. We're just going to keep it as it is. And request and response. Make a little arrow function. And in that response, we're just going to send, say, Docker is awesome. All right. So in order to run this Node.js server, we're going to require a port as well on which we're going to listen. So let's define that. And within a production environment, actually, we're going to be having a .env file, and then you would access that using process.env dot the port, whatever it is. But since we don't have that right now, we don't have a dot and we don't have a .env file, we're just going to use port 88. That should suffice. Also, to let us know that the application is up and running, we're going to listen on this port. And once it is up, I wanted to fire a little function that just says console.log it out. Server is up. All right. And that's all that you're going to require in terms of JavaScript today. So simple little application, save that. And what we're going to do is we're going to install the dependencies required for that. Like we are in the development phase right now. So let's get the dependencies installed. I want you to open up a terminal session and cd into the source folder. And let's just, all we're going to need for this is Express, nothing else. So we'll just do that. Let it do its thing. And there we go. We have all of our node modules, a package log JSON, and a package.json. So since this is a node application, we're going to have to write a little script. And for that, I need you to go to your package.json file and follow along. So since this is a JSON object, I'm going to put the comma there. And let's just make scripts part. So all we are going to be using is start for that. And that's going to be node. The entry point is index.js, so we're going to write index.js. All right. That is all for the application. Now let's start Dockerizing it. If you must be remembering, the first step that we do in order to make an image is make a Docker file. So that's what we're going to do. I need you to create a new file, and we call it Docker file. As soon as I write it, you see the Docker logo, and that tells you that you're all good to go. The first command in this is going to be from. All right. I hope you're following along. So the first command in your Docker file is always from. If you hover over it, you'll see a little bit of documentation for that. And what this does is that it defines the base image which you're going to start working from. Now, since this is a Node.js project, we'll be pulling down the node image. And I am running on node 18.14.0. So feel free to use whatever version that you're using. This is the one that I'm using. And that's your first line. This is a layer. Every single command within the Docker file counts as a layer, and it will either be committed to the container in the form of metadata or a file system. So the next command is work dir. What this defines is it defines your working directory. And let me explain what that means in a moment. So what this does is that it defines a path for your file system, that is -app that I've done, in the container. This is where, like, beyond this point within the Docker file, all of the work that's going to be done is going within this directory, that is the app directory within our container. Now, what I wanted to do is generally what we do in real production is that, while development at least, is that you first, if you're referring to version control, you go to GitHub, you go to the repository that you want to clone, and you first pull all of the code, and then after that you install the dependencies. But we're going to be taking a little bit of a different approach here, and I'll tell you why. So what I wanted to do is copy and We're going to copy package JSON, this. So the copy command takes in two arguments. The first one is what you want to copy from your local file system, and the second one is where you want to copy it within your container. You can notice that I've used a wildcard operator here, the asterisk, and what it means is that once this command is executed, it'll go and search for every file that begins with the word package. So that means it'll go for both package log and package. That way, I don't have to write two copy commands. Just use an asterisk and it'll solve that issue. And then the extension must be .json, package log.json and package.json. The second argument is where you're going to, oh, my bad. The second argument is where you're going to have it copied into, and that is the current working directory of my container, that is the app directory. So that is what it means. The next one is now that we have our node modules and our dependencies from package.json, I would like to perform an npm I on it. What the run command does is that it directly starts a shell session, and it's going to run it simply like it does in your command prompt or whatever you're using if you're in iOS. There we go. So this installs all of the dependencies that are required. In our case, that would be just the express dependency. And after that, what we're going to do is we're going to use the copy command again. And what this means is that I'm copying everything from my source folder into my working directory. However, I wouldn't want my node modules from the previous time to be overwriting the ones that I have right now. That would be problematic, right? If we do that, then this step is going to be redundant. The copying package.json and running npm I, that's going to be completely redundant. So I don't want node modules to be copied into it. If you remember in source control, you used to make a .git ignore because you wouldn't like to commit thousands of dependencies on your repository, and that's exactly what we do for Docker as well. Bringing us to the next file, that is .docker ignore. Oh, great. Spelling is awesome. All right. There we go. And we're going to add our node modules into it so that the next time, like anytime the container is spun up, I don't want my previous node modules to overwrite the ones that are there within the container. Now to run this application, we're going to need a port, and we're going to expose that using the expose command. And let's say it's going to be 8080. Keep in mind, this port is actually the container port. The outside world does not have any access to this. And we're going to come back to this. And it's something called port forwarding. And I'll let you know what it's all about once we actually run the container. Coming to our last command, that is cmd, and it's an array of strings, that is npm. My bad. npm start. All right. So the instructions that are written in this form, this is called the executive form, and this is the shell form. So it's a little bit different than these ones. You can see it's simply an array of strings, and every Docker file has only one cmd command. It's generally the last command as well. So that's all, I guess. That wraps up everything that we have to do for the coding part and the file system part. And let's just start cracking. So what we're going to do is, the first thing that we're going to do, we're going to build an image from our source folder. Wherever your Docker file is, now if you see, it's actually not located in our source folder. So I'll need to move that within it. Let's move that. All right, so what I did was I moved the Docker file into the source folder because I want to be able to run it throughout this path. And it wouldn't, what the Docker build command does is that it looks for the Docker file within the directory that you're in. So that wouldn't have worked if I wasn't in the source directory. So let's just say Docker build -t. This is the tag flag. And what this does is that you can name it something. So the general naming convention is that you use your username that you have used for the Docker desktop. And You just name your application, we'll just call it demo app. You can version it with a semicolon, let's just call it 1.0. And the next argument is the path. So if your Docker file was stored in somewhere else, then you would have had to provide that path over here. But since it is within the source directory, we'll just use a dot over there. Let's run that. Okay, so there is an error. Says that repository name must be lowercase. Ah, I see. So over here, it was supposed to be node in the lowercase. Always remember that every single image name, like if you remember even the Ubuntu case, it was lowercase. So don't do what I just did right now. The node should be in the lowercase. And let's just run that. Great. So what this is doing is this is building up the image, which will be then the starting material for building a container. Keep in mind, you can spawn multiple containers from a single image. There's no restriction for that. They're all standalone units. So you can see that we just built our first image and it is either marked by a encrypted value or the name that you just gave it. Now, for all of you Web3 enthusiasts, you must be recognizing the SHA-256 encryption code. I hope you know what that is about. Keeping that aside, let's just try and run this now. We have an image and we're going to try to run it. So what do we use? We use docker run, and I'm just gonna copy the encrypted key because I don't know, I love long values. And let's just run it. Now we're going to be running into a little issue here, but I'll let you figure out on your own. Just watch it. Server is up. Okay. So if you remember, in our index.js file, we had used the port 8080, right? So logically, it should follow that if we go onto our browser, which I'm bringing up in a second, if we go onto our browser and we run port 8080 on our local host, then it should be able to run our application, right? Not quite. Watch what happens. Let's just get the browser up. All right. I hope it's visible. Yeah. So let's just go to our localhost. 8080 is the port that we had used. And what it does is generally it'll just keep buffering or it will say that it took too long to respond. Basically, it doesn't work as intended and it throws an error at your face. And why does this happen? Is that let's just minimize this now. Why does this happen? Is that because I told you the expose command is exposing the port of the container, and this is not available to the external world, nor your local computer or the cloud that you're running the container on. So what I want you to do is go to your Docker desktop and we need to stop this container. This is your Docker desktop. And there's quite a few other containers running as well. We'll just stop all of them. This is the Ubuntu one as well, if you remember. Now, while we wait for that to happen, let's just come back here. And we can see that we have successfully crashed our Node.js server because I just stopped the container. All right. And here we go. We're back in our shell session. So what we need to do is something called port forwarding. What this does is that it maps up a port on your local machine to the port on the container. And let's just do that. We're again going to build an image. Let's just say this is a version 2, let's say 2.0. Given it the path, let it do its thing. Let's just see the comments until then. All right. Keep it going, everyone. Great. So we have a new image and the new name given to it. So this time we're going to be running it with port forwarding. Hyphen P, this is the port forwarding flag. And the syntax for it goes something like this. So let's say I want to use port 5050, and that is mapped to 8080. So the local port that you want to run on your local machine goes on the left, and then you use the port for the container that you have exposed. And that's how it maps the two ports together. So let's just copy the image ID and let's run this. Hope you're following along. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them in the comments. Wait for it to do its thing. All right. Server is up. So now what we are going to do is instead of 8080, we're going to go on port 5050 that we have mapped to 8080 on the container and watch what happens. Docker is awesome. Congratulations, you have built your first Dockerized application. And there it is in all of its glory. So that will be all for Docker that I wanted to cover. For sure, we'll go into more depth on the upcoming sessions as well. I hope the pacing wasn't too fast, and if you have any questions, I'll be taking them for 2 or 3 minutes. I hope you enjoyed that, and let's just catch you another time, I guess. I hope you've enjoyed this. This has been Docker with Chinmay, and I'll be seeing you very soon. You can ask me questions, whatever you have in the comments. Let's just see the comments. Right. Seeing some seniors in the chat as well. We'll be catching you in a short break of 3 minutes. Krishna will be taking over after that. Hope you're having a great time.
Okay, okay. So, hello guys. Uh, we'll be talking about the Ansible right now, and let's begin it. Okay. So, what's Ansible? Ansible is basically a configuration management tool. Okay. By configuration management, I mean that you can basically configure the softwares on another server. Okay. So, let's continue it. So, what used to happen in the beginning was that developers were writing code and system administrator they were deploying the code. It was such a repetitive and boring stuff, as you can see. Then later on, shell scripts came into picture. Shell scripts were good, like you just write a set of commands in that terminal, and they will execute accordingly. But still, it carried a lot of complexity. Then to cover up all this, there came Ansible. Ansible is basically a simple automation tool. Like you just write a set of command on the main server, and you can control any number of servers that you want. Fine. Well, this is just a meme, so it won't be happening in reality. So why Ansible? The first reason being IT automation. Okay. Uh, IT automation, I mean that you just write instructions and they will automate accordingly. Configuration management, as I told you, and the last reason being automatic deployment, like manual deployment is being replaced by automatic. So here comes the main part. Like जैसे तुम यहाँ देख सकते हो, ये जो बड़ा वाला बॉक्स है ये है तुम्हारा मेन सर्वर, ठीक है। और जितने भी छोटे बॉक्सेस हैं ये है तुम्हारे टारगेट सर्वर। तो एंसिबल का मेन रोल ये है कि तुम मेन सर्वर की हेल्प से ये सारे टारगेट सर्वर को कंट्रोल करोगे। अब ये जो टारगेट सर्वर है इनकी रिस्पेक्टिव आईपीज है। अब मान लीजिए हमें बस ये टॉप के 3 वाले सर्वर्स को कॉन्फ़िगर करना है, तो हम क्या करेंगे, इन तीनों की आईपी एड्रेस एक फाइल में डाल देंगे। जैसे कि तुम यहाँ देख सकते हो, इस फाइल को हम कहेंगे इन्वेंटरी, और हम फिर कुछ कमांड्स लिखेंगे और ये सब हम करेंगे मास्टर नोड्स में। तो भाई थ्योरी तो हो चुका है, लेट्स डू इट प्रैक्टिकली। सो जैसा तुम यहाँ देख सकते हो, यहाँ पे 2 टर्मिनल्स है मेरे पास। ये दोनों मेरे पास अलग-अलग वर्चुअल मशीन्स है, और ये दोनों वर्चुअल मशीन मैंने क्रिएट की है एज़्योर की हेल्प से। एज़्योर के बारे में मैंने आपको ग्रुप पे भेज दिया है, आप देख लीजिए। सो द फर्स्ट रीज़न, मैं क्या करूँगा यहाँ, इन दोनों के बीच कनेक्शन एस्टेब्लिश करूँगा। ये एंसिबल का मेन पार्ट है। तो कनेक्शन एस्टेब्लिश करने के लिए पहले मैं एसएसएच की करूँगा। इससे क्या हुआ है, मेरी एक प्राइवेट और पब्लिक की क्रिएट हुई है इसमें। लाइक यू कैन सी द लोकेशन इज दिस फॉर द पब्लिक की, एंड दिस इज वेयर ऑल द कीज आर स्टोर्ड। सेम वी विल डू हियर इन द टारगेट सर्वर। तो ये हो चुका है। अब मैं क्या करूँगा, see, I'm using Linux commands. Okay, so Linux is the top priority for getting into DevOps. So first learn Linux, ठीक है। तो ये वाला कमांड है, so I'm copying the public key from here, and here as I go to SSH authorized keys, and here in the authorized keys I will paste it. Okay, सो अब हमारा कनेक्शन एस्टेब्लिश हो चुका है। अब हम क्या करेंगे, एनसिबल को इंस्टॉल करेंगे सिर्फ मास्टर नोड में। लाइक we don't need to install Ansible in all the servers. We just need to install it in the master server from where we will control all others. Okay, so for that we will do sudo So yeah, our Ansible installed in the master server. Okay. तो अब देखो इन्वेंट्री के बारे में मैं बता रहा था, तो इन्वेंट्री के लिए क्या करेंगे, इस टारगेट सर्वर की जो पब्लिक आईडी होगी वो हम इन्वेंट्री फाइल में डालेंगे। तो इन्वेंट्री फाइल बनाने के लिए हम करेंगे विम इन्वेंट्री। सो विम इज बेसिकली अ टेक्स्ट एडिटर फॉर द टर्मिनल। ओके, सो कुछ भी इंसर्ट करने के लिए पहले हम आई टैप करेंगे, देन टू गेट द पब्लिक आईडी, सी either you can copy the public id from here, like it's the target group and this is the public id, right? Or else what you can do, just write a command here, curl ipconfig.me, curl sorry, curl ipconfig.me. Okay, so you have your private uh, now I'll paste it here. Now to exit it, you tap on exit, then colon, then w and quit. Okay, so अब देखते हैं कि दोनों में कनेक्शन इस्टेब्लिश हुआ है कि नहीं। मैं एक बेसिक कमांड रन कर रहा हूँ और एज यू कैन सी पिंग पोंग, सो हमारा कनेक्शन इस्टेब्लिश हो चुका है दोनों में। तो अब देखिए मैं कुछ कमांड्स लिखूंगा, सी फॉर दिस आई नीड द रूट परमिशन। रूट परमिशन लेने के लिए आई नीड सॉरी I will do dash dash become. It will take some time. Till then you can see like it's not installed. So it's, you can see from here I installed a package here and it get executed like this. Okay. Coming back, I want to install one more package. Let's check if it's there. See, Nginx get installed with version this. So this is the purpose of Ansible basically. So coming back to the presentation. So yeah, what I wrote the command was this. As you can see, I wrote Ansible -i. Here -i represent the inventory type, inventory which I wrote before. All represent the host group. So host group, like now see, here I have just created one target server, right? There can be multiple target server, so you need to group them. Like if you want to that configure on some servers only, then you have to group accordingly. So you can do अब देखो ये क्या है, वेब सर्वर नाम से एक मेरा सर्वर है जो मेरे राइट हैंड साइड पे, और दूसरा है मेरा डीबी सर्वर। डीबी सर्वर में मैं कोई सा भी आईपी डाल सकता हूँ, मतलब कोई अननोन सर्वर है उसका भी डाल दिया। वैसे ही करके मैं कोई प्रोडक्शन का डाल सकता हूँ, ऐसे करके मैं ग्रुप कर देता हूँ, ठीक है। तो लेट्स सी व्हाट है। तो आपको एक कमांड एग्जीक्यूट करना है, लाइक व्हाट आई विल डू, inventory. Now instead of all, I will write web server to connect to this, cause this one is in my web server domain. Okay, so this is the purpose of that host group. And here the dash m represent the module. Modules are basically see, like you can refer to ansible documents. Ansible, here you can see all the modules. Okay, so the module which I used was apt. These are predefined written codes. Okay, so you need to just use them. So I used apt. Then see what I used. Then I used the name command, and I entered the package name. State equal to present means I have to install this. If I need to uninstall this, then I would have written absent. Okay, so see, name Apache to the package name and state present. So this is ad hoc command. Now see, ad hoc command are used for one task. Okay, but if you want to perform more than one task, then ad hoc commands aren't suitable, so we write playbooks. So the most essential thing before writing a playbook is YAML, the I mean the language for writing the playbook. Okay, so YAML earlier definition was yet another markup language, but now it's YAML ain't a markup language. Such a differentiating one. Well, never mind. So see, there can be different ways for writing a playbook. Okay, you can write it by JSON, by XML, but we use YAML because it's the simplest one. Okay, so let's begin writing a playbook. See, for writing a playbook, let me clear here also. I will write first playbook. My playbook name will be first playbook, and the format I will be using is .yaml. Either you can use .yml. Okay, so I use insert. The format for writing it is first use 3 dash, then enter, then again a dash, and write the name of the task. Okay, which you want to perform. Store. So my task which I will be doing will be update and install Rhythmbox. Fine. So next I will write host. होस्ट के बारे में बता दिया था मैंने कि हमने उसे वेब सर्वर में डाल दिया था, और मैं यहाँ पे बिकम रूट। अब देखो मेरे को वहाँ बार बार डैश डैश बिकम करने की वो हो रही थी, तो मुझे यहाँ पे रूट यूज़र बनना है, तो मैं ये कमांड डाल दूंगा बिकम ट्रू। ठीक है, अब मुझे जो भी टास्क परफॉर्म करने हैं वो यहाँ लिखूंगा मैं। अब देखो YAML का एक फॉर्मेट है कि जब भी तुम कोई ऑब्जेक्ट की प्रॉपर्टीज लिख रहे हो, जैसे टास्क लिख रहे हो, तो तुम 2 स्पेसेस के बाद ही लिख सकते हो। तो मैं यहाँ से शुरू करूंगा। पहला टास्क का नाम है अपडेट पैकेज। फाइन। द मॉड्यूल आई विल बी यूजिंग हियर इज apt, and yeah, date cache true. Sorry. Yes. The another task I will be going on will be installing Rhythmbox. Okay. Here again I will be using apt module. So as I told you, name It will be rhythm box and state present means I'm going to install it. Okay, so after doing all this, just press exit colon w and q. So now it's done. Let's try it. To execute a playbook, you have to perform this syntax: ansible playbook dash I, and here the inventory, and then the location of your playbook. So this is oh, okay, sorry, YAML I've chosen. Shit, what I'm doing. First playbook. So it's ongoing. Well, till then, any questions? If you want to ask, you can. Uh, वो मैं फोन से चेक कर रहा हूँ सर. Sorry. It's taking time. So hmm, okay. So I guess you missed that playbook part. So let me continue it again. So for creating a playbook, the basic syntax is it should be YAML format. Okay. So let's begin. First three dots dashes. This is the basic indentation. Then start with dash name and write the task which you want to perform. Data and store what? Nano. Then I will mention the host. See, I've already classified it under web server domain, so I will write web server. Next, I will go to come. See what in addo command, what we used to do where we write this, okay, dash dash become. तभी हमें वो रूट परमिशंस मिलती थी, लेकिन यहाँ पे हम यहीं पे मेंशन कर सकते हैं. अब हम यहाँ पे टास्क लिखेंगे जो भी हमें परफॉर्म करने. YAML का बेसिक फॉर्मेट है कि दो स्पेस देने के बाद ही लिखना होता है फिर से. तो हम फर्स्ट टास्क लिखेंगे कि अपडेट पैकेज. यहाँ पे हम मॉड्यूल नेम लिखेंगे जो कि मैं यूज़ करने वाला हूँ APT एंड I will use update cache. Yes. Next task is going to be install nano apt. Name of my package is nano, and state as I said, to install it I will write present. Okay, so wq. Now we will execute this playbook. So the format to execute a playbook is first write this Ansible playbook, then mention the inventory location, and then your playbook location. Fine. So yeah, now it went so fast. To check it, we will write nano dash v. So yeah, as you can see here, it got installed. Nano is also terminal, okay, means text editor, but it's different from Vim. So this was the playbook part. Mm, regarding this creating a virtual machine, if I get time, I will explain you later. So a task which you can perform is install a package named Nginx through playbook. Okay, and you can send it in the group. So yeah, this was playbook, and after deploying, yeah, everyone must be feeling like this. So well, everyone doesn't know about DevOps, right? So all are confused whether a job must might be here or not. So here are some tips like how to land up a job in DevOps. The first is build up a good resume, the most important one. Okay, and second, get DevOps certification. Like there are many certifications in the market right now, so try give the exam and get them. Third is contribute in open source project. Like now many open source projects are opened regarding DevOps, so you can contribute there and increase your skills. And the fourth point is expertise in at least one of the cloud platform. See, if you want to make into DevOps, you must have your strength in any one of the cloud, like either it be AWS or Azure or Google Cloud. So you must practice anyone. Okay, and the last one is grow up your connections through either through GDSC and LinkedIn. Fine. Well, this was the stuff. Thanks for joining. So let's wrap up all this.